Did you know that gender diverse companies are 15% more likely to outperform those who aren't? And companies who are ethnically diverse are 35% more likely to outperform those who lack ethnic diversity in their workforce? Hi, my name is Katie, podcasting from the Harvard office in New York, and you're listening to Recruitment on the Go.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
In today's episode, we're talking about hiring bias, and we will offer some actionable tips on how to eliminate it from your hiring process. As always, the goal of every recruiter is to select and hire the best employees possible. However, recruitment decisions can be and often are influenced by unconscious biases. These biases can be difficult to uncover and can lead to imbalances in the hiring process, resulting in uniformity instead of diversity in the workplace. But what is hiring bias? So as human beings, we have been hardwired to make impulsive decisions, a trait refined over millennia to ensure the survival of our species. Our decision-making process tends to be an unconscious occurrence, a result of learned assumptions and beliefs that help us navigate our complex world. Basically, how we perceive our world is based upon our understanding of it, and our connection to other people is typically built upon shared or common experiences. These unconscious biases make us form opinions of others without getting to know them first, and this affects how we treat them. Unfortunately, recruiters are not exempt from this. If left unchecked, recruiters can be misguided by their biases. They can hire based on the way an applicant looks, the college they went to, the hobbies they have, or the social circles they move in, none of which have any effect on the candidate's ability to carry out the role they're being recruited for. So in order to have diversity in the workplace, recruiters have to ensure that no candidate is favored over another during the hiring process. So now you're probably wondering, how do you prevent hiring bias? Good question. Well, here are 11 ways to reduce bias in your hiring process. Number 1, build awareness around hiring bias. This might seem counterproductive, talking about the elephant in the room, but that's the only way people learn that their gut instinct isn't necessarily a good thing. By teaching recruiters and everyone else responsible for recruiting about hiring bias, you will draw attention to it. This will allow people to acknowledge when they're doing it, why they're doing it, and more importantly, encourage them to change their behavior for the better. Only by acknowledging the issue of hiring bias can we work towards finding a solution to eliminate it. Number 2, check the language in the job descriptions. Studies have found that the language used in a job description, rather than making the job sound appealing to a broad spectrum of candidates, actually can have the adverse effect and put people off from applying for the job. By unwittingly including gender or age in the advert, you could be alienating a large number of applicants. Avoid assigning gender to the ideal candidate in your job post, as this could deter applicants. For example, terms such as salesman, or text about what the company requires of the candidate, rather than about the skills the ideal candidate has. Prevent bias by removing gender, age, and other restrictive terms from the job post. Don't make the job title and description so precise that only a select few individuals could apply. Make it as inclusive as possible. Number 3, blind the resume review process. If you don't think you can objectively thin out resumes, do it blind. By which we mean remove the candidate's name, age, and other potentially discriminating information from the resumes before you go through them. This will remove any unconscious bias you may hold when reviewing and ranking the resumes according to the number of relevant skills the candidate possesses. And if you don't think you hold any biases, well, a recent study showed that minorities who whitened their name due to an unconscious bias received twice as many callbacks as those who didn't. Number 4, only use validated assessments. Validated assessments are those pre-employment tests that have been screened to remove bias. The use of such assessments during the hiring process has been ongoing for years, as they are an efficient and reliable way of providing insights into the capabilities and traits of potential employees. By using scientifically validated assessments, you have control over the input, and you can be sure that the output, meaning the results, are reliable too. Number 5, standardize the interviews. If you don't already have a standard interview format with set questions, then implement one now. Don't rely on your interviewers to read the room and ask questions as they see fit. They will have their own unconscious biases as well. Standardize the interview questions and the post-interview debrief so that all assessors follow the same framework when assessing and ranking candidates. While you're at it, standardize the whole recruitment process to eliminate bias from the get-go. Number 6, watch out for bias towards likability. Likability is not an indicator of how well someone would perform in a given role. Having structured interviews and a diverse hiring panel can help eliminate the likelihood of hiring based on likability bias. To further reduce the possibility of likability bias, pair the interview with a skills test or a real-life problem-solving challenge in order to give each candidate the best possibility of demonstrating their particular strengths. This keeps the focus on performance of the candidate and not on how well you've clicked with them. Number 7, implement a collaborative hiring process. Diversity attracts diversity. Don't have just one person responsible for hiring. Make the hiring process as unbiased as possible by including as many different people, with differing backgrounds and differing worldviews as you can. This way, a broad spectrum of people will have an input on each candidate, and everyone will be looking for something different, allowing for a collaborative hiring process, instead of one that's based on one person's decision. Have everyone individually note down their thoughts during the interview and submit these, or discuss them openly as a group during the selection process. Number 8, acknowledge the confirmation bias. Interviewing candidates is a great way to get to know someone, but basing your hiring decision on an interview alone should be avoided. This is because we can be prone to confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a tendency we all have to seek out information that supports our preconceived notion about someone or something. Acknowledge that confirmation bias exists and conduct your interview only to get acquainted with the candidates. But assess them via a skills test or an on-the-job interview to make sure that they can walk the walk, not just talk the talk. Number 9, think about diversity and inclusivity goals. If you want to reduce hiring bias and increase diversity in your workforce, you'll need to set goals. So before you start hiring, define what you want to achieve. For example, do you want to have more ethnic minorities, more candidates from schools that aren't Ivy League, more women, older candidates, younger candidates, maybe all of the above? Whatever you want to achieve, be clear about it and share it with your team. Don't just pay lip service to being an equal opportunities employer. Let your candidates know you're actively working towards being a diverse employer and encourage diverse candidates to apply. Make your goals really apparent and include your diversity criteria within your job description. Number 10, don't rely on intuition. This one is pretty straightforward. Intuition is based on assumptions, and assumptions are biased. In the end, you don't want to explain your hiring choice based on the fact that it felt right. Number 11, vary where you advertise. If you want to achieve your diversity goals but are wondering why you aren't getting anywhere, then it's probably because you're doing the same thing over and over again. What you can do is try to diversify your recruitment campaign. For example, look for job boards away from the ones you typically use. Move away from using niche sites that are specific to your industry. Change the search parameters to include potential candidates on LinkedIn who may not possess all of these specific job skill sets, but who possess strong transferable skills. The specific role requirements can always be taught. Target university and college job boards that you would normally shy away from, because not all rising stars can afford to go to the top schools. To conclude, eliminating hiring bias results in a diverse workforce. And a diverse workforce means a more successful business. In fact, research shows that diverse companies produce 19% more revenue than those who don't have a diverse workforce. Thanks for joining today's episode. If you want to learn more about the benefits of reducing hiring bias, and of course everything and anything recruitment related, check out our blog at harvard.com/blog and subscribe to our podcast. See you next time.